Okay, we are live. So welcome back to the veterans, our veteran speaker series that we've been doing, and excited again to we've had so many different veterans from so many different areas of the military and with so many different stories. And this is great because we're really getting a lot of ideas and thoughts for our veterans or our active duty who are thinking about transitioning out. And so today we have Randy Rozzell with us. Randy, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you.
Randy, how long have you been retired?
Just over 5 years. I retired in September 2016.
Awesome. And you're a retired Navy SEAL.
Yes.
And yesterday we were talking off mic about your transition and how you were prepping for it. And you really gave me a perspective that some other veterans haven't. And so I'd love to start with that. But when you were thinking about transitioning, what were the steps you took and the reasons why you took those?
Well, once I decided I was going to get out, I did 22 years active. I chose to go to instructor duty. So I left the SEAL teams and I went to a different command. I was at SEAL Team 7 and I went to go to Advanced Training Command, where I was going to be an instructor. I ended up becoming the chief of combatives. But what that did was that gave me time to start to look at other careers. It gave me time to, instead of being in the crazy hectic platoon cycle of the SEAL teams, we're always training, we're always gone, we're always deploying. It gave me a chance to slow down, be home for my wife and kids, kind of reconnect with them, figure out where I fit in with them. And then also it gave me time to start talking with other people and other SEALs that had gotten out and friends of mine in the military and see what they were doing and what they did. And so, a lot of us in the military have chosen lines of service. So I started looking at firefighting. I started looking at police officer. I looked at the border patrol. I looked at contracting because that's normally an easy one for somebody in my situation with the experience of being a SEAL. But I found out that I was going to be gone just as much, just paid a lot more. So, and I was getting out to be a present husband and father, not one that was watching my kids grow up on Skype all the time. So contracting wasn't, my wife didn't want me to do it, even though it was a lot more money. So what I really did was I took my last 2.5 years in and I started figuring out what I thought I would like to do. And then once I decided what I wanted to do, then I went full speed ahead into that. So
when you were thinking about what you wanted to do and you're a firefighter now, let's talk about some of those things you did to make sure that you were able to get into that. And also maybe one of the reasons why you picked working with the fire department.
Well, I was fortunate in the fact that I'd had a couple of SEAL buddies that had already gotten out and become firefighters. They worked, I live here in San Diego. I work for San Diego Fire Rescue. So I work for the city of San Diego. My buddies that got out, one works for Long Beach, one works, a couple of them work up in Orange County, and they all loved it. And what they were telling me, they were like, Randy, it's a lot like being in the platoon. It was the camaraderie that we love in the SEAL teams of being around a close, group of guys, laughing and joking and having fun, but yet doing something meaningful and that has purpose. Firefighting was right there. Now, again, it's not weapons based, but the camaraderie was similar. And that really spoke to me. So once I decided that I wanted to be a firefighter, I talked to my buddies, saw what they did. I went to a local fire station, the one that I'm at now, actually. My wife had got to know a couple of them just from living in our neighborhood and walking our dog past the fire station and our kids. And she's a school teacher. So she kind of made a connection with me, and I went down there and I started talking to them about like, hey, if I wanted to do this, what are my steps? And so they started talking to me about that. So I started going through the steps. I was already an EMT and I was already a paramedic from the military, but I went through and got my national registry. for paramedics. I went to Miramar College and started taking fire classes. I put myself on my terminal leave through a fire academy. And then while I was going through that fire academy, I decided I wanted to work for San Diego, even though I'd gotten some job offers at some smaller ones, smaller departments. I was going to stations at night, practicing the interview, and I ended up doing really well and getting picked up. I took one test and I did one interview and I got picked up the first time. Now, of course, being in the military helped, and of course, being a SIL helped. But I think also the fact that I didn't expect anybody to hand me anything because I was a SIL or because of my prior military service. In fact, I was still active duty when I tested, so I didn't get any of the veterans points. So I didn't get any of that stuff that veterans can get now when they take civil service tests. And so it was all just like I was like anyone else other than the interview, but on paper, I was like everyone else. And I think going in with that humble attitude and not expecting anyone to like they owed me anything and like, hey, I've got to earn this, just like I had to earn becoming a SEAL, was a mentality that helped me become successful so quickly. Where most people, once they decide they want to become a firefighter, it takes them years. And I was able to do it really quickly because I did my due diligence, did my research, and then spoke to people that had already been successful that way.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And you didn't really have a drop in time, right? Did you, if I remember?
No, it was pretty funny the way it worked out. I couldn't have planned it any better. I retired September 30th, 2016, and I started the fire academy October 1st, the next day.
Wow.
So,
Now, were you glad that it happened like that? Do you wish you had taken some time?
absolutely. I mean, like I said, I was already on instructor duty and I was already processing, to leave the teams and to start a job in the fire service because I'd taken that time. So I was ready to go. Now my wife goes, you never really processed getting out. I was like, well, what is there to process? Life is chapters and seasons. And a big part of my identity was being a SEAL, but that's not all that I am. I'm also a husband. I'm also a father. I'm also a friend. I'm also a man in different ways. And I think, before I was a SEAL, I was an FMF corpsman with the Marines. And then I became a SEAL, and then I moved on to now firefighting. And, I have my own business on the side as well. But, I like to keep moving forward in life. And, the experiences from the past, they help me move forward, but that's not all who I am.
I like that. And I think that's important for everyone to know that, we're not one trick ponies and that we have a lot of skills and we just need to know how to harness those skills and how we transfer them. And I think you did that really well. Now that you've been transferred out for the last 5 years, did you find any hiccups or issues or things that happened when you transferred out that you really had to transition or adjust in your new work world?
I was worried, being in the SEAL teams were pretty rough around the edges, to say it nicely. And I was worried about working with civilians, being like maybe my attitude or my demeanor is a little too gruff for them. But I found that the fire service, I met a lot of like-minded people, a lot of people, so I chose a job where like, okay, I don't think I could have gone from the SEAL teams and worked in a cubicle, right? So I needed to be around people that I wasn't going to offend accidentally by just being me. So I think that's something important too. To think, I think a lot of people get out and they're like, oh, I'm going to go right into business. And you can do that absolutely. But you also need to be flexible and need to realize your audience and what you're trying to do. And if you carry some of the same stuff from the military and you can't talk in the business world like you did in the platoon, and that's it's common sense for most people, but it's also tact and maturity.
Mhm.
So and I think that's some things that, especially having my own business now, that you flirt with as a veteran. Also, I always just felt like a SEAL. I remember there was another SEAL on our job here, and I said, "Man, I always just feel like a SEAL getting to play firefighter for a day." And, and I'm like, "Does that ever go away?" He's like, "Not really." And I'm like, "Okay, cool. Then I'm just a SEAL that gets to play firefighter for a day."
Well, you're-
That's just going to be what
yeah.
I do from now on. And it was kind of okay with me. And once I was like, "All right, it never goes away. I'm always going to feel like this." Uh, and that's okay. That's all right.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. Well, and were you in, was it 23 years that you were in?
22.
22. So, I mean, that's a really long time to do what you're doing. And you're essentially doing your second career. And you've
Yeah.
talked about your business. So let's talk a little more about that, because a very hot topic among a lot of veterans that we work with is they want to start their own businesses because they feel like this is a really great fit. They don't want someone telling them what to do. They want flexibility. Like you said, they don't want to be stuck in a
Right.
cubicle. So, you are a firefighter right now, but you also have your business, which I know is expanding. So,
Mhm.
what got you into starting your own business?
Well, what I did in the military, I was the chief of combatives, and I made a new program that never existed before in the SEAL teams in combatives. So hand-to-hand combat, self-defense, prisoner handling. And when I was there at ATC, I didn't only teach SEALs, I also taught some other agencies and some other groups. And I realized that some of these other agencies and groups out there that would come to our course needed help. They didn't have a lot of good training. So, and when I got out and became a firefighter, I just thought, what a shame it would be for all of this knowledge that I have, because there's only a handful of us in the teams that actually are qualified to the same level to teach combatives the way that I was. And I'm like, it would just be a shame for it to die, especially when I have so much knowledge where I can help. And so I think one thing that allowed me to start my own business was I became a firefighter first. So I wasn't worried about bills and keeping food on the table and wondering if my kids were going to be able to eat or play sports or, and my wife works as well. So when I started my business, it wasn't a huge risk. I didn't take anything to where if it all blew up in my face, it was going to ruin us financially.
Mhm.
Um, so which allowed me to have fun with it versus putting all my eggs in one basket and becoming super desperate.
Mhm.
So it allowed me to grow my business over time. And when you're allowed to grow business over time and it's just extra money for you, it's just icing on cake, then you don't get so involved with it that it stresses you out.
Mhm.
And I've learned some lessons with it. But I think for any veteran looking to start their own business, get a job first. Get a job, have money coming in on top of your retirement if you don't have a retirement, or on top of your disability if you don't have any of those things. You know, pay your bills first, and then as you pay your bills, start flirting with doing a business. And there's grants out there. The internet's full of information. The VA's full of information, and the Small Business Association's full of information for loans and grants for veterans if they don't have money to start these things. There's all kinds of agencies that want to help you, that would bend over backwards to help you. And you can take advantage of them if you don't have the financial means to do it on your own at the beginning.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. Being someone who's been in business for 21 years and I own a couple companies, when I first started out, that's what I did. I worked and built it on the side because I didn't have the capital. And it gave me flexibility. I call it the side hustle
Mhm.
that you're doing. And a lot of people's side hustles, I mean, you look at someone like Sarah Blakely from Spanx, her side hustle turned into $1 billion company. Now, not everyone's going to be $1 billion company, but many people I know have been really successful at that, and including veterans as
Yeah,
well.
I'm keeping my fingers crossed on mine. It's allowed me to relocate now and walk away from the fire department. I've become successful with it, and my wife and I just We just built a brand new house in Texas. It's going to be done in April, and we're going to be relocating there. So I can teach this full time. So, but the fire department's been great. It's allowed me to do that.
Yeah. And it sounds like it really helped with your transition too, just that transition into, not only having another great group to work with, but then you also were working with civilians on a regular basis, as a firefighter.
Yeah. And that's just, like I said already, that's just maturity and tact, knowing how to deal with people, and to treat people, and to realize, in the military, we realized that, hey, wherever I go, I represented the SEAL teams and ultimately the Navy. So the way I conducted myself was a reflection upon them. Well, as a firefighter, when I show up on a call, whether it be a medical aid, a structure fire, or a vehicle accident, how I conduct myself represents San Diego City Fire Department. As veterans, we're used to that. So I think, we've got a lot of great attributes that businesses and companies could use out there. We know how to show up on time. We know how to look clean, and we know that ultimately the way that I conduct myself is going to be a representation of the business. And I want to do that to the best of my ability. And when your boss and businesses know that you understand that, they usually, appreciate that in you and can promote you pretty quickly, or advance you.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So did you have any hiccups when you were starting out your business on the business side that you could help veterans navigate a little better when you've been?
Yes. Yeah. I made a pretty costly mistake. I went and met with the government agency. They flew me to Texas to go meet with them. And I briefed them. I was supposed to build a combatives program for them. They wanted me, and they're like, "Hey, we're going to start this. We realize you did this for the SEAL teams, and we want you to build ours." But they didn't, and I was like, "Okay." And I went there. I briefed all their big wigs and like their version of an admiral. He has 1 star. And their guys, and we shook hands. We're like, "Man, Randy, we can't wait to work with you. We've actually got extra work for you once you do this. Like, we're super excited to have you and bring you on board." And then a lot of the stuff happened down at the border with the convoy coming up, and that kind of put it on the back burner. And then stuff started going off in Seattle and Portland, and all the riots and all that stuff. And now we've got all the border issues now. So a lot of the stuff going around the world affected my contract to build this for them, and it kept getting put on the back burner. At the time, though, they didn't have any equipment, and I needed equipment for my business anyway. So I spent $20,000 of my own money to kind of, outfit them to run the course the way I wanted to do, because safety for me is everything. Julie, you've trained with me, I can't have any injuries. And you do that with good safety gear. And I had great safety gear in the SEAL teams, but when you get out and have to buy this stuff on your own, it's different. And when you're dealing with elite people and civilians and doctors that can't go back to work with black eyes and busted lips, right? You better have some good safety gear. So I bought that stuff on my own, and then the contract hasn't happened yet. And I've been waiting 3 years on this thing. Yeah. So I've got all this gear in a storage unit that says I utilize some of it. It hasn't really gone to waste, but it was just, I learned the lesson of, before I go out and spend a lot of money on anything out of my own pocket, why don't I just wait until it shows up into my account?
Yeah.
Or I've conducted, or it's a 100% thing, like, hey, these are the dates, bam, bam, bam. And when I left the first time, we didn't have dates. It was like, hey, we want to do this. We're going to contact you and we're going to set it up. We just got to wait on this and this. And, it's the government. Things will always knock them out of the saddle. And me being a retired chief and running an apartment, I understand that things happen. So I didn't take it too personally. It was just a bummer. Yeah. And it's still been a bummer. And I'm still kind of waiting on this to happen. They, every 6 months they'll call me and they're like, hey, we still want to do it. But I'm no longer holding my breath, and I'm no longer spending my own money on it. So I wouldn't, unless it was like a grant or something that you didn't have to pay back, I wouldn't spend your own money on a lot of things until it's written in stone.
Hmm, very true. I agree with you. I've seen a lot of people do that. They get so much and then they're not able to sell it, or it doesn't work, or things don't go through. And COVID showed that right now, or the last couple of
Right.
years, as well as all kinds of supply issues right now, with ships coming in. So I think that's great advice. Any other advice? I know that I've told you before that I don't do a lot of working with the government entities because there's so much paperwork and I haven't done a lot of work with the government. So I have a tendency to stray away from it, but you have. Any other advice if veterans are thinking of going after government contracts, or tips that you can give them that maybe you've experienced?
Uh, well, you know, be patient. And, getting your service disabled veteran-owned small business will help. It's paperwork. But if you're looking at government contracts, that will help. Realize that every other veteran out there that wants government contracts has done the same thing. And it's a minimum of what you need to do to be competitive, unless you have a product that you're the only one that has it. Um, and don't, if things don't work out, don't take it personally. I think that's a big one. And you're going to have to utilize your connections. Either you're going to have to work for a company that has these connections, go in, one of these logistics or acquisitions companies that has that, or you're going to have an in. You're gonna have to go like to your old shop or to your old people that you used to know and talk with them, and then they're going to have to request you. So it depends on, like, I don't do merchandise, I do service. I provide a service. So it's merchandise and service are two different things, and you have to decide who you are and what you're going to do, and it takes time. you know and if it's meant to be, it'll work out. But ultimately, as long as you're stable other ways, like I said, and you're, like I said, when it didn't work out, it was a bummer, but I didn't, you know, I wasn't like, man, I need this to work. And I need this to happen now. Or, my son's not going to get braces and Randy Lynn can't do dance lessons, So I never allowed myself to get that involved with it to where my livelihood was dependent on that. And I think that's probably the biggest advice I could give you is don't get so wrapped up in it that it's driving you nuts when things don't work out, because the government always moves slower than you want them to. They will never go at your speed, ever. And being a veteran, people know that.
That's good advice. And a lot of things you're saying, I hear echo a lot of time from different groups who did get themselves into a government contract and money hasn't come through, or they put out a lot of money and it
Oh
has.
yeah, and it takes them forever to pay you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, those are all great things to think about, is not to put all your eggs in one basket, look at more than government contracts, as lucrative as they sound. I've heard that as well. So I know that we have a few questions, but a couple of things I wanted to ask you was a little bit more about your business. Now, I know you do a lot of stuff. You've done a lot of stuff for different government groups and SWAT and different things like that. But you also transitioned your training skills into helping civilians like myself. And let's talk a little bit about what you do, because I think it's really unique. And I love how you took something from your SEAL career and was able to bring it all the way down to someone like myself who has no knowledge or anything like this, but it helped me learn how to use it.
Well, at first I thought I was just going to be teaching like other military agencies and SWAT teams and spec ops units. And the more that, I was trying to go in and teach these groups, I practiced jujitsu, and at my gym, guys were like, well, hey, could you teach us some of this combative stuff? And I'm like, yeah. And then as that started happening, they're like, you know what, my daughter would need this, she's getting ready to go off to college. And I was like, okay. So then I started teaching like groups of like high school girls. And I realized that the techniques weren't that much different. It just went from like and the SEAL team's always getting back to a weapon, getting back to a gun, or a knife, and looking for the next threat. When it came to civilians, it was more like, hey, the techniques are no different. It's just more about survival, to get out, up and away, to regain situational awareness. And I'm like, it's self-defense and hand-to-hand combat, which is it's not that much different. It's just the end goal is a little, I mean, other than survival, but SEALs move on, where civilians escape. And I'm like, wow, there is a big carryover here. And what's funny is I always find, I really find helping police departments very beneficial. I find it meaningful and fulfilling. And, but then when I get to teach civilians, like someone like you, Julie, or I teach a lot of college kids, I find that just as fulfilling, because these are people that need it. When I look at police officers and military units, I'm like, well, it's not if it's going to happen, it's when it's going to happen. It's definitely going to happen. But with civilians, it is, okay, this may happen, but if it does, and I can help you prepare and be ready and help you survive, that's very meaningful. That I get to do something that I feel good about myself. I'm not just collecting a paycheck, like I actually got to help someone.
Yeah. I love
that feels good.
And I really like that you were able to, oftentimes I hear, how can I transition my military skills into civilian lifestyle or help civilians? And I really like how you did that, because, for those who don't know, let's tell them the name of your company, which I know is going to change soon.
It's American Warrior Combatives.
And so, Randy right here in San Diego does a lot of training. He'll be moving to Texas to do more. But, something that Randy was doing for myself and some friends I've referred was customizing for us and who we are and our size on how to defend ourselves. And it was really unique because it was different than anything I had ever had. I've had a back surgery. So he was able to figure out how I was supposed to move because of my back surgery. So I just love that, because it's very unique in that, a lot of times people forget that those skills that you learn in the military can transfer over in a civilian way. And you found a very unique way to do that. And I think that's really neat. So I had a couple questions come in here. So one is from someone who's active duty. Okay. And they said they're thinking about getting out in the next year. Have you utilized your GI Bill? And should they do that? What do you think about that?
Absolutely. It's free money and a free education. I'm utilizing mine right now to get my master's degree. I utilized it to pay for the fire academy. So it will, if you're interested in going to a police or fire or anything like that, or if you want to do a on-the-job training, it can help you with all of that. Right now, it's the GI Bill, the post 9/11 GI Bill, the housing allowance, or the money that you get a month to live off of, is $3,000 a month. So, and that's $3,000 a month for you to go to school. And if you're working too, now you've just got that extra money. So you're getting paid to get an education.
Yeah.
I'll have my master's degree. I've got 3 classes left and I'll be done with that. And I've been paid thousands of dollars to get it.
Yeah.
So it's free. You should take advantage of it. And I mean, what a shame it would be for you to have that money, to have that opportunity and never utilize it.
Yeah.
It would be a shame, and it would be a waste. You should absolutely use it. I hope you do.
Yeah, that's a great question. And as you know, San Julian Institute, we offer a lot of programs for our transitioning veterans, and we now offer accredited programs. So for those of you who are listening, we offer a lot of scholarships. We have transitional programs, especially one of our women's programs, Combat Boots to Heal. So make sure to go to synergylearninginstitute.org and check that out, and we'll help you. And if you don't know what to do, we can also help direct you to the right schools and how to utilize that. But I think that's great advice. And, you know, something we didn't mention, Randy, but you are with Synergy Learning Institute working on your book.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
little by little, Randy is working on a book. And I wanted to mention that because a lot of people, a lot of times think that they can't do that or they can't write about their stories. And we really encourage Randy to do that because we think he has a great story that he can share to further other people. And I know you're still in the works of that, but what would you say has maybe been the toughest part as you're kind of learning and figuring out and writing your book?
Oh, God, the time right now. You know, between firefighting and going to college to get my master's degree and running my business on the side, and then still trying to be like a husband and a father, and actually, like, you know, pay attention to my kids, you know, all three of them, you know, once I can get them kicked off the video games, and, you know, thinking dad's a nerd, trying to find the time, and, you know, to actually sit down, collect my thoughts, organize it, and write. And so that's probably the toughest time is you know, I'm looking forward to March because I have 1 month off of school. So
Yeah.
before I finish up my last 2 classes, and I'm hoping to take that month and just kind of dedicate to that. But I think it's important to stay busy too. Yeah, you know.
Well, and with writing your book, what's the purpose with your book? Because you had a very specific purpose.
Well, I mean, you can't throw a rock and not hit a seal book, or go into a bookstore and not see like a wall of books with this tridents on them. I didn't want to write just another seal book that was like, look at me, I'm a seal, I did this. I wanted, you know, I had a rough time making it into the SEAL teams. I went through, I didn't make it through until my 4th Hell Week. So I don't know of any other SEAL that went into Hell Week 4 times. So there's a lot of perseverance that I had to, you know, deal with and keep going and apply to actually achieve my goal. So and like I said, there's all kinds of things that will knock you out of the saddle along the way, and all kinds of people will tell you you can't, and all kinds of things, just things in life that will try to keep you from accomplishing your dream. And being a SEAL was my dream. And even though, you know, I went into Hell Week, you know, and got hurt 3 times and finally made it through on my 4th, you know, most people are like, oh my gosh, you're crazy, you're stubborn, you're, you know, like, what's wrong with you? Because most people don't understand, you go through hell just to get to Hell Week. You lose half your quitters before you even get to Hell Week. And you know, it does take something to keep doing that. And so that book is really about like, okay, well, what did it take to keep doing that? And so if I can help people learn to persist, and what I did, and share my story so they don't give up on what they want to do, well, you know, I think that's pretty meaningful, a way to get back.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
And I want you to share that because a lot of times people think that they can't write a book, right? They think they have to have so many degrees and so many writing skills. But I think that if you have something important to share, you can get the right people to support you to help get that message out. So, you know, I think that's important for our veterans to know as well, because you know, I think a lot of times our veterans are overlooked with the skills and the knowledge that they have. And we just need to provide avenues so that skills and knowledge can get out. And so, so we'll keep you guys updated on Randy's book, and we're excited.
Yeah.
Gonna get it done.
You and me are the only two that are going to read it, Julie. But
Oh, stop. More people are going to read it. Well, our time is coming to an end. So for those of you guys, if you have any specific questions, you can message us. We'll send them to Randy and he can answer those for you.
be happy to.
be posting this on, it's live on Facebook, but we'll repost it on LinkedIn, several other areas. You can reach out to synergylearninginstitute.org if you want to get in touch with Randy, and we'll connect you. And we'll also put the links as well in there to his business so you guys can connect there as well. And we just want to thank you, Randy, for coming live with us and sharing a little bit about your story.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thanks. Take care. Bye-bye.